Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm your host, Simone Morris, and I have a passion for empowering others to take responsibility for their careers. Yes, I've written several books on owning your career and am loving hosting this podcast. This podcast is for you if you're willing to make a shift to the driver's seat in your career. We feature leaders who inspire, empower, and motivate you for consistent career action for results. Please continue to join us every Sunday when a new episode is released. Let's get into this week's show. In this week's episode of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast, I'm so pleased to be joined by the wonderful Andrea Sengara, who is VP of Marketing at Campari. I'm thrilled to have the conversation about her career journey with her today. Andrea, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Simone. It's wonderful to be here with you and reconnect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you have moved up the ranks, and I want to hear a little bit more about your journey and what you're currently doing.
Okay. Well, I've been in the industry for quite some time. I think that journey started in Canada, where I'm originally from, with Bacardi. And it didn't initially start, let's say, exactly where I wanted it to start. I knew I wanted to be in brand management. I think to get my foot in the door, I started in an area I had more experience in, coming off of some internships I had done internationally. I have a pretty big adventurous streak in me, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about. I did not follow the traditional path coming out of business school, which is where I was coming from. I went and traveled the world and took advantage of some international opportunities that presented themselves to me. So I was coming off of working for Adidas in Colombia, South America, as an intern, but I had performed well there. And so they'd given me the responsibilities of leading their, the equivalent of their trade marketing department, creating it sort of from scratch and working closely with their sales teams and their global teams to identify what opportunities made sense in that marketplace. So I came back to Canada after that experience and entered sort of the beverage alcohol world with Bacardi in the trade marketing department, where I had, credible, relevant experience to contribute. But I always had my eyes set on the brand management marketing area. So I performed well in the current role, which would always be my advice to people when they enter a company, just regardless of what their ambitions may be. Must perform well in the role that you currently have. And then quite quickly thereafter moved into the brand management department of Bacardi Canada. And very shortly thereafter was recruited to work for the largest beverage alcohol company, which is where we ended up meeting, but not for many years later, because I started in Diageo Canada. So I was recruited to move over to Diageo, which was very exciting for me. As you'll see throughout our discussion, I have big ambitions. I always tell people to reach for the stars for whatever they're looking to do. There are no limits to what you can do. I strongly believe that. I believe that with the people that I work with, the teams that I manage, and the brands that I work on, the businesses that I work on. And I apply that same philosophy to myself and my career. So I moved over to Diageo in Canada. Very positive experience, very exciting brands. I was managing the Scotch portfolio, one of the most valuable brands in the world, Johnnie Walker. Learned all about that category, single malts. The company at the time took over Bushmills whiskey, was integrating that into the organization. So learned about Irish whiskey. And I sort of pioneered a new way for the local organization to look at category marketing. We're very brand centric. But I had a huge category with so many different brands. I had to plan what our portfolio strategy was within that category. So I sort of presented to the organization what that could look like, which is something we then adopted as a country, and that then sort of got spun out globally afterwards. So our category performed really well. I then moved on to the top performing business in that unit, which was the vodka business, Smirnoff Vodka. The most valuable brand in the world at that time. Flavored vodka was just becoming a thing which is hard to think of today. And it's funny because I look back on the conversations we were having at the time, and I think we had 4 flavors in the market at that time. And there was a lot of discussion. I don't know. Do you think we can handle more flavors? Do you think we can do 5 or 6?
How much is it now? It's crazy. There's like every flavor you can think of.
There is. There is. You know, you're talking upwards of 30, right? on some of those marks. So really, really interesting working on such a big trademark that was the main business contributor to the organization in Canada. Again, it was category, so it was Smirnoff, it was the flavors, but we also had other vodka brands. And I had, as I mentioned, before I was in Colombia, I had traveled previously. I had a desire to work internationally again. Even before that, I was in South Africa, working internationally for a congress. And I'm most stimulated and most excited when I'm working with people that have different points of view. I very much have a growth mindset, so I always love to be learning. I'm very curious. I'm not the kind of person that thinks I have all the answers. I feel like there's something to be learned in every interaction that you have. So when I go to meetings, I'm always very curious to hear what everybody around the table has to say. Doesn't matter where you're from, doesn't matter what department you're in, doesn't matter what level you are. Great ideas come from everywhere. So I was looking for that high level of stimulation again. So I was exploring different opportunities internationally with Diageo, which was one of the reasons I was very attracted to it, because it's known to facilitate global moves. And I ended up having to make an interesting choice. I had a really exciting opportunity in Amsterdam, which is one of their global headquarters, to work on the global Johnny Walker team. Now, this at that time was what I thought was my dream job. I had at that point thought, oh, this is my dream job, this is exactly what I want. Interestingly enough, I was also presented with another opportunity, which was to move to the United States to work on a smaller brand that Sean Combs had just partnered with the business on. The brand was called Ciroc. Prior to Sean Combs deciding he wanted to work on the brand, the company was not sure what it was going to do with this brand. It was not making any money, and there were a lot of conversations about what we should do with that brand. I remember having a conversation with the vice president of reserve brands at the time, saying, what do you want me for? Like, do you need somebody to manage this brand? The article I'm reading is that Puff Daddy is the brand manager for Ciroc. And they said, no, we very much need somebody to work at Diageo to figure out how this partnership is going to work. How will this work? We are a large matrixed organization with processes and procedures and a lot of legal regulations, working in a 3-tier system in the United States, highly regulated industry, with a new exciting partnership, but we've never done this before. And we need somebody to lead that. So I thought I was going to take my dream job. I thought I was going to go to Amsterdam, go live internationally, and work globally. Global marketing was always what I thought I wanted to do. And I ended up taking the job, moving to New York to work with Diageo and Sean Combs.
What made you decide to take what made you, if I can interrupt you, Andrea,
please, of course.
What made you decide to pass on your dream job and choose the riskier, and let's unpack risk, by the way, choose the riskier opportunity?
There were multiple factors at play there. I think one of them was I was excited about the unknown, right? So that adventurous streak in me, that curiosity, that growth mindset said, I was gonna grow in either role. So that was exciting, but pioneering something new that the organization didn't know how to do was really, really exciting. Now, high reward, high risk, right? To your point, this could have gone horribly wrong. I could have gone there and had no idea how to do this and failed horribly, right? I could have not successfully built a relationship with him and his team and been very poor in the role. I never met with him and his team before taking the job. I only met with the Diageo team. But they felt that I had the right attitude and approach, and And I decided to take a chance. It's New York City too. I mean, that's also very exciting. And it was unplanned. So it was not what I planned out, but I decided to take that chance. The other thing I thought of was, how often does this opportunity come along? This is a very unique, special opportunity. Will global marketing roles in Amsterdam be available later? Likely. So, I could probably move to that again later if I find that this did not fulfill me. So those were the factors. So I decided to go for it.
I love that. And then you said so many good things. Amir, you talked about the sky is the limit, growth mindset, the stimulation of international travel. Let's go to growth mindset for a moment. How does one shift to that growth mindset? It seems like, did you always have a growth mindset? Because it seems like it served you well.
As I reflect on my choices and how I approach things, yes, I have always had a growth mindset, and it has absolutely served me extremely well in being able to perform well in my roles and being able to build relationships. The reason it served me well is because I'm very open. I'm open to different ways of seeing situations. I don't always think that my perception of a situation is the only way to see it, right? And I think it's allowed me to build really strong relationships because I actively listen to others. I want to collaborate with others. And I believe that together we're stronger than any individual alone. So, and it's all driven by this curiosity that I have, right? Like I am genuinely interested to know what other people think, because it will help shape the perspective that I have, and it will help us collectively find the best way forward.
Yeah, I was always encouraged to see things in a positive light, to look at the glass half full, and unconditionally supported to go after what I felt I was, passionate about. So I'm very fortunate, very, very fortunate from that perspective, to do that. And I feel like I grew up in a community that was very, very diverse, and very supportive of everyone wanting to understand different cultures, of understanding different perspectives. And I remember the moment where I realized that it was a very special community, and that the rest of the world looked very differently at those things. So I think a lot of that shaped just how open I am, and how welcoming I am.
Well, you sound like just the boss that the world needs right now, just with your growth mindset, attitude, and the sky is the limit. You can do anything, and imparting that on your team. I wonder, Andrea, let me take this in a little bit of a different direction and ask you, what are the secret ingredients, or what is your formula for successfully taking ownership of your career?
I think you have to be unapologetically fearless about going for it. You just got to go for it. I didn't realize I was fearless until a woman who I thought was the model of fearlessness.
I love that.
I really did.
Title.
She embodied for me drive, hard work, shattering ceilings. She was one woman at the level of all men in beverage alcohol. She to me was fearless. and successfully had identified a path to do what she wanted to do. And when she told me that she that she admired my fearlessness, I was stunned. I was stunned, and I didn't realize that I had actually shown that throughout my career. And part of that was putting no limits on myself, right? Like I didn't stop myself from seeing opportunity. And I see some people doing that to themselves. So, sometimes I think we have to realize sometimes we limit ourselves in the ambition we set for ourselves. So I would say, to reach for those stars, to be honest with yourself about what you want, to think about what you need to do to go and get that, and set your sights on that and go for it. Go for it, because there's no reason somebody else deserves to go for it over you. There's none. Now, it might be harder for you. It might be harder for different people to go do that. So we have to recognize that. But there are ways to put yourself on that track and to go for it. You'll be more fulfilled if you go for it. And, and on that journey, you might change what you think you want, which is what I did. And that's fulfilling as well in itself, to be open to that as well. You find new things, but you continue to grow and you continue to set ambitions for yourself. So doing that, I think, is really important. So I think that fearlessness of setting that ambition and going for it, and avoiding putting any limitations on yourself, fighting that chicken inside of you, some might say. Because they're always there. There's always there, people, that voice inside. Can I really do that? Can I really say that? Yes, you can.
The chicken is the inner critic.
Absolutely. We all have it. Even those people you think don't have it, they have it too.
Sure. So what advice would you give to the person who is going to continue going for infinity? The sky is the limit. If they're hesitant and not wanting to move forward, what message do you want to share with them?
That we've all been in that moment. Everyone has been hesitant about, forging the path that they want to go down, because it can be scary. It can be frightening to think, can I really get what I want? Can I really achieve what I've set out to achieve? Will I be able to perform at that level? Will I be respected by my peers? We've all felt that. All the other people around the table you're going to be at have thought that as well. So remind yourself why you are where you are. Remind yourself about why you're able to sit at that table and why you want to continue to go where you want to go, how you are building yourself up and how you're growing and developing to be able to do that at a high level, and continue to do that. Grow yourself, educate yourself so that you feel comfortable. I'll give you an example. I recently, while I was working, and as our world has gone so increasingly digital, and so much more of our roles in marketing have become digital, I felt I wanted to accelerate my learning in that area. So I went out and did that. I went out and decided I wanted to educate myself some more in that space. So I did feel more comfortable, leading conversations about what we needed to do there. So there's always something you can do. So think about what that is, and go do that so that you feel confident and comfortable as much as possible. But whatever you do, don't stop. Don't stop. Keep going.
I love that. What resources, since we're talking about resources and pivoting and embracing education, what resources come to mind for you in terms of taking ownership of your career? What can you recommend?
I think it's important to seek out other people's support and advice. So, the concept of networking, I struggled with that in my career. Okay, first I'm trying to do a really good job of my job, and then I'm, trying to have a family, and now I'm supposed to make time to network. How am I even supposed to do that? Is that being fake? I don't want to spend time doing that. I would look at it as I have found that I have grown and learned a lot by finding the right groups of people to have more conversations with. That's how I look at it. I think if you want to search out mentors, the concept of mentorship, I think is really important. I never really had any mentors, but I have made time to sign up to be mentors for others because I think it's really, really important that people share their learning. And frankly, I get quite a bit out of it in terms of just that exchange with others about what others are going through and together how you can help each other. It's a very fulfilling, rewarding experience for both parties. So I would say if you have opportunities to sign up for either company mentorship programs or community mentorship programs on both sides, being a mentor to others and being a mentee, I would say that I have found those to be fulfilling experiences that can help you grow. They can help open your eyes to other opportunities and also help connect you to other people, because those people that you meet have other connections that might prove interesting and helpful for you. So I would start with that. And then I would get interested. I find if there's any industry groups that attract you. Don't force yourself to do something you're not interested in. But there's a lot of groups out there. There's a lot. So whatever industry you're in, take a little bit of time to see what groups are out there that are talking about topics that are of interest to you, that you would find interesting to learn more about or participate in, because then you will be connected to others that you might be inclined to want to have other conversations with. I think just connecting with others to have more conversations in the field that you're in or the field that you're interested in being in is important. I think it helps open your eyes to different ways of thinking about what you're currently doing, and helps connect you to opportunities with possibly what you're currently doing, but as well to what possibilities could be in the future.
I love that. It's so funny. Today I got an email about mentoring, and I actually took the time to fill out and submit my name. So I love and co-sign what you're saying about mentoring as an opportunity, and also connecting digitally with these different groups. You have access internationally now. Take advantage of this opportunity.
Yes, that's a really good point. Since things have gotten more virtual, you're able to connect virtually now with so many more groups that previously might have been all in person. It's a really great point.
Yeah. Well, as we begin to wrap up this interview, it's so good, Andrea. I'm wondering if you had to think about your career, and if you had to come up with a title for your career body of work, what would the title of the book be?
Never stop growing. Always look forward. Never stop, never settle. I don't know. Multiple choice options.
Well, think about it. Well, it sounds good. It sounds great, and it's consistent with what you're saying about the sky being the limit. And I love that attitude. How fortunate the people that work for you are, and even your family, to have you as a mentor, leading the way with that attitude. I think it's wonderful.
Oh, you're so sweet. That's very kind of you to say.
Well, it's true. Now, tell our listeners, if they want to stay connected with you, how can they do so?
I think the best way would be on LinkedIn. I try to stay as active as possible there. So would be happy to hear and engage with you on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. Well, Andrea, thank you so much for being a guest on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. This has been fabulous.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for everything that you're doing to help promote people owning their careers. I think it's absolutely wonderful. So keep up the great work.
I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this week's empowering career story on the podcast. If you did, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Wherever you listen to the podcast, be sure that you are subscribing and that you rate and review the podcast. It's so important as we continue to spread the word of career empowerment. In addition, you can head over to the LinkedIn platform and join the Power of Owning Your Career discussion group. There you can have access to the guests who have been on the podcast, as well as others listening to the podcast, as well as myself, where we can continue the conversation. I hope to see you on that platform. You can also email me at pooyc@simonemorris.com if you have a suggestion for guest or a message that you want me to hear personally. Thanks so much, and make it an inspiring, empowering week in your career.